Welcome to the Homeownership podcast presented by Movementum Realty, located in Hanover, Massachusetts. This series covers all things real estate and the best practices for buying, selling, and owning property. Now here is your host, Sean Maloney.
Welcome to episode 208, Protecting Your Home from the Cold. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. This week, with temperatures going to drop down into the negative degrees, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a little bit of time to explain to you homeowners how to keep your home safe from that super cold, so that way there you're not dealing with the massively expensive problem of having frozen pipes. First off, remember, -5 is beyond what most of our houses are built with to deal with. So when we look at that type of temperature, we're going to have to be a little more creative than usual and a little more protective of heat than we usually are. So this means when entering or exiting a home, pull the door shut right behind you, not leaving it open. Maybe you're carrying the groceries, maybe stack all the groceries outside the door, open it once, shuffle them all in, and close it quick. Opening and closing the door is a giant hole in the side of the house and the fastest way to lose energy. Your heating system isn't always meant to catch up with and then beat out temperatures like -degree temperatures. So letting all that cold in is going to let all that expensive heat out and mean that your system's only going to work harder to try to get it back to the same temperature as it was. One of the easiest and old school tricks is just to simply turn up the thermostat. Before an event like this, allow your heating system to warm your entire house up to a level where it's warmer than usual, so that way there, if there is any deficit, if there is any loss, your house has more degrees between there and freezing to protect itself. Now, I'm not telling you to turn your heat up to 90, that'd be inappropriate and everything, but turning your heat up above 70, probably 74, would be a really good number to know that your house is going to be safer than it was. And remember, the longer heat is on and up, the more the surfaces heat. You can think about it like this, like when you get in your car and you turn your heat on, yes, it becomes warm, right? But if we were to turn that heat off, it becomes cold really quick, right? And that's all due to the fact that the surfaces are not yet warm. I used to plow snow, and after maybe 20 hours in a truck with the heat running, the truck would be so warm I'd be wearing shorts and a t-shirt inside, and I wouldn't even really have the heat running except for on and off, because every single surface had heated. Now, when I get in a car like my own and I drive over to work, there's never a point where I turn that heat off because it's not truly heated. You can think about this just like you would think about a super cold night. Everything's not heated. The cold is coming in through the walls. It's soaking its way in. So you want that heat soaking its way out. Now, let's go over some other things we can do. So first off, when a deep freeze is coming, it's important to walk around and check your house. Look for things like missing insulation, windows and doors that are ajar, heat trace pipes plugged in, and anything else you can do to stay warm. Now, what is heat trace pipe? So heat trace is a little wire that you end up taping on or securing to your plumbing, and it plugs into the wall. This is good for those exposed pipes, for those outer facing pipes. It's not an everyday fix. We don't always have these on some homes, but some homes are an everyday fix, such as places with crawl space and other spots like that where they're always exposed to the cold. Maybe not this deep cold, but they're in a situation where the cold does get to them, so having the heat trace on them is going to keep them warm. Very cheap option. If you do have heat trace and you haven't checked it in a while, just put your hand to it, make sure it's warm, and make sure it's actually doing its job before the cold. That way there, if you had a pop breaker or you had a dead piece of heat trace, you could end up replacing it before it becomes a big problem. Doing the check is a big one though, because whether it be mice and other critters that like to dig in insulation or cut holes in the side of our house to get in during the wintertime, or it be something like just time where the insulation has settled down from the ceiling in a basement level, checking all that can save you a lot of problems. Now, even though it cosmetically might not look the best, one thing you can do for extra preparation is take soft items such as blankets, towels, jackets, and you can put them at the base of the door where the breeze goes underneath the door. You can actually put 2 nails in the side of your trim work and hang a blanket right over the door. That's going to insulate the entire door a little bit more. It's not the best looking, but guess what? It's an immediate effect because oftentimes on our front and rear doors on our home, over time they get bent. There's little extra gaps between it and the trim work, so there is a bit of a draft around it. Other times the door itself, maybe it's not the most modern door, maybe it's not the most insulated door, so just putting a simple blanket over it is going to add an extra layer. But no matter what window, door it is, covering it over with those blankets and things, pulling down your blinds if you have them. The blinds is another thing where that will create almost like a little bit of an air gap between it and your window, which is going to slow down the leak of cold. Especially for you folks who have those single pane or older windows, you really want to do all you can to cover those windows to keep those drafts and breezes from coming into the house. Now, if you have an unheated crawl space, it's time to take a few extra precautions. Some people might be nervous about space heaters. Now, space heaters, you want to buy an expensive one. You want to buy one with tip-over devices so that when it does tip over, if it did, it will shut itself off. But space heaters in the modern day are pretty reliable. You want to put one of those in your crawl space if it's unheated for the time, especially when it's going to drop down into the negative temperatures. Typically what I'll do is take a piece of like slate or a patio paver, something large enough to hold the heater up, and put it down level and put it on that. That way there I know it's on something non-flammable, it's not pointing directly at anything that it could melt, that it could catch on fire, and I feel safe putting it there. The space heater is a great way to make sure in a crawl space that you have enough heat. Oftentimes the ambient temperature of the earth is about 55 degrees. We're able to have these crawl spaces unheated because the heat coming down from above from a house or the heat coming out of natural earth temperature is going to warm that up. But on a windy, cold night that's in the negatives, it actually can drop those temperatures so much that it can lead to frozen pipes. Guys, protecting your house from the cold is a real job that you should take the time to do. If you have problems with it, make sure to know where your water shutoff is as well. It can be really a lifesaver to turn the water off early if you have a frozen pipe than to have the whole entire house flood. If you have a house that's vacant, make sure also to drop by and check that out. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you all stay warm in this deep cold, and I look forward to talking to you next week.